I'm trying to get this Yankee helmet onto the snow globe, but it's not really sticking there. This thing kind of reminds me of Citizen Kane. You ever see that movie? They say it's the #1 movie of all time. It always ranks #1. The whole thing is Rosebud, and what was Rosebud? Do you know what it is? Okay, it was his. Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, the Yankees are starting to lose their patience with Cody Bellinger. Still hasn't signed yet, and seemingly the Yankees might be close to pulling the deal off the table. But of course, right now, rumored that Cody Bellinger is within moments of making decisions, so it might happen even during this episode. Can't really control that. But nevertheless, we'll get you caught up in that situation. And two huge free agency pieces fell off the table, and that's, of course, Kyle Tucker, who's kind of maybe Cody Bellinger's kind of waiting how that deal is falling off. But then right after that, Bichette. So really, Cody Bellinger now the last big free agency piece. So we kind of get into those big two deals there, because not only are they big monumental in terms of a year, annual average value, which is going to be the new AAV thing that you're going to be hearing right now, but kind of a unique contract that may be the route that the Yankees have to go with Cody Bellinger there. So kind of give you the background of that. But you probably worry, what's Cashman going to do? Is there a backup plan? Yes, he does. Another big signing. I know you've been blown away by Paul Bajong, but we got another big one here. Seth Brown. Yankees picking up Seth Brown to a minor league deal. You probably never heard of the guy, but nevertheless, the Yankees have him, I guess, maybe as a backup option, or maybe to sort of scare Bellinger. But nevertheless, I'll give you the stats. Again, you got cut by the A's about a season ago there, but again, coach you up as well, because you've been excited about these Cashman off-season moves. So, got all the stuff for you, and just for a little a treat, some Hall of Fame news. Two Hall of Famers, two former Yankees. They're probably going to go in with a Yankee hat there, but Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones just elected to the Hall of Fame. Kind of just give you my thoughts on that, and lukewarm on the whole idea, but again, we'll break down the stats and numbers and all that stuff. So we got a lot of good stuff for you. We got some current Yankees, we got some Hall of Famers, got a lot of stuff here. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this podcast, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Again, the Bellinger news could happen at any moment there. You don't want to wait a whole week to get my take on a thing. Get the audio version podcast of the show. It's updated frequently, and get right after the Bellinger move happens, wherever he does end up with it, I'll actually give my take on that. And of course, you should have subscribed ready on YouTube. Get it all. So this free agency kind of dragged on a lot. It wasn't really the greatest free agency class there. Of course, Kyle Schwarber getting signed early on. Everyone else has kind of been drip by drip just because there hasn't been so many big names. I guess maybe they each been waiting for the best deal possible. And of course, we spoke about some of them. Schwarber, of course, but of course also last episode, Bregman going to the Cubs, which again is helpful for the Yankees just to split him away from Boston. And it's a similar situation with almost with Bo Bichette going to the Mets. Get Bichette out of the AL East, get him away from Toronto, which we'll cover a little bit later. But I guess probably the most shocking of all the big free agency signings at this point has been the Kyle Tucker deal, which the Yankees weren't in on him at all. Now, supposedly, I guess, after the Mets really had a couple of bad weeks there, Stevie Cohen was kind of putting out a little bit, again, kind of puffing his chest up that maybe they were going to go after Tucker, and they were going after Tucker. Now, supposedly, the Mets were offering him a deal about 4 or 5 years at $50 million per year with a supposed signing bonus. Now, the whole signing bonus has kind of been kicked around whether the Mets were really serious about that, but looks like the Mets were going to be in on Tucker, which was kind of a little head-scratching because it seemed like they were kind of stripping down, not offering anything to Alonso, trading away salary in Brandon Nimmo. Yeah, you bring back Semien with a little salary as well, but Nimmo was making more money there, so unloading salary, and of course, letting Edward Diaz, who's probably going to say the top closer in baseball, go to the Dodgers for a measly $3 million. So again, it seemed like the Mets were stripping down, so them in on Kyle Tucker seemed a little bit of a head scratch, but I guess they were looking to make a move because they did go up with Bichette. But getting back to Tucker there, kind of a shocking contract. So it's a 4-year deal worth up to $240 million. And now there's a lot of different caveats, which I've been using that word a lot because now the way these deals are, the old days of just signing someone to 5 years, 10 years, and just let it ride, looks like those days are over. It probably has a lot of teams, they still want to be hanging on to a guy for 10 years. And of course, you see what happened with Yankees and A-Rod. You see what's going with the Yankees now with Giancarlo Stanton. It's a little bit of a different situation there, but Stanton, okay, I say he's serviceable, he's good, we like him. The fans he's an okay guy. I mean, he's not totally broken down, but he kind of hanging on to him a little bit longer than probably the Yankees wanted to, and he kind of bottles the Yankees up where they, obviously he played the field a little bit last year, but again, kind of just you're holding the DH spot hostage there with one guy there, so and doesn't give the Yankees much flexibility. So you've seen a lot of these long-term deals might be a thing of the past. What you're gonna see now, what you see with Tucker and Bichette, which we get into, I didn't think teams would just they'd rather front load the money. money, pay you, in your prime now, even if they have to pay an outrageous price, but not have to be, beholden to hold on to you for so many years, which that might even do more damage versus paying you like a ridiculous amount per year. So, this is probably going to be the wave of the future. And maybe this is the route the Yankees are going to have to take to finally get Cody Bellinger with opt-outs and signing bonuses and front-loading money. And, it's kind of a mutually beneficial because you're getting a player in their prime at their best, paying them the most, and then, once they turn on the, the wrong side of 33 or 35, they're no longer on the contract, and at that point maybe they're playing for 1 year contract at a time where they have to earn it. But meanwhile, by getting more money sooner at a younger age, they're not really as desperate to get a deal. So if they have to play 1 year at a time later on in their career, again, because they already got their big payday years earlier, and this is the one with the Tucker here was just kind of crazy. So the annual average value, again, that's what you're going to be hearing, that is because now you got signing bonuses, all these things click in there, and deferred money, all that. So the guy's going to be making about $57.7 million. So this guy's making almost like $60 million. That's close to Ohtani money. He's just behind Ohtani in terms of money per year. But right now he's ahead of Judge and ahead of Juan Soto, not in total value there, but per year. So like Judge right now is just getting about $40 million. So again, Kyle Tucker is getting about almost 17 million more than Judge per season, which is kind of crazy because Judge is an extremely much better player. Not saying Tucker's terrible. He's a good player, but he's not judging level. He's not Soto level. He's not generational level. And, his best years were maybe about 3 years ago with the Houston. His last 2 years haven't been great. Okay. 2024, he lost a lot of time due to injury. He lost some time, but he did play 136 games this past season. But again, the numbers weren't that great. He hit 266, 22 home runs, 73 RBIs, 133 hits, so not even close to 200 hits. So again, it's a lot of money for a guy who's not that great. So kudos to him. And no one forces the team to pay. If someone wants to pay, someone wants to pay. So it turns out the Dodgers, who have become the new Yankees, the new evil empire, just pretty much buying everyone and just doing all these deferred deals and deferred money, and working their books to make this all happen. And again, makes the Yankee fans a little frustrated because the Yankee organization should be on par with them. The Dodger payroll right now with this Tucker deal is over $400 million. The Yankees aren't even close to that. And that's saying that buying players and having like a $50 million player at every position, cures all, ails all cures and all that stuff, whatever that the saying is. But it's just again, what makes Yankee fans more frustrated as Steinbrenner when you see the Dodgers the way to do this. So more about the deal though. $30 million of that money is going to be deferred. Includes a $64 million signing bonus. So this is the signing bonus for the signing. And he has opt-outs after year 2 and year 3 of the deal, which is important because right now he's 28. If he wants to opt out after the second year, he'll still be 30 years old and still relatively young, where maybe he does get a similar 4 or 5 year deal offer, but maybe at that point he takes it because he knows he's going to be getting a little older and he probably won't be able to opt out. It probably wouldn't be a wise move to opt out. So maybe that's the play in there. So he has the flexibility, or if he wants to wait after that, I believe he'll be age 33 after the second opt out opportunity there. So again, relatively a young player. If he wants to, if he does well and he feels like he could get another long term deal, he could opt out of his current deal and get it there. But as I mentioned before, he. A good talent, great, I don't know if I'd call him great player, extremely good player, but again, even when Tucker was at Houston, you worried about Bregman, you worried about Altuve, you really worried that much about Tucker. It's kind of, it's good solid play, in right field, okay, but it's not something you're worried about. So again, the Dodgers offered it and he got it, and it's just, it's insane that, again, that's what the value is because he's just not that type of player. But anyway, as I mentioned before, again, his best years were with Houston, like 2022 to 2021 through 2023. There, those 3 years were probably his best years. And again, that was 3 years ago. Yes, he has hit 30 home runs twice and once 29 times. So, but again, you just don't see him as that's Soto Ohtani type of money, and it just doesn't seem a fit for Tucker. But unfortunately, that's the way it rolled out. 4-time All-Star, 1-time Gold Glove, and again, before probably his better years were years ago there. So to get the amount of money, just kudos to him for pulling that off there. But this is crazy, and of course now the Dodgers pretty much, crazy enough they had Edwin Diaz there to pretty much secure their third championship row. Now they throw in Tucker. It was almost like a throw in there. So I see a lot of fans upset with this, but look, if you're a Yankee fan, you really can't be upset. they could be doing the same thing. And hey, in the 90s, you didn't have the revenue share and stuff like that. The Yankees were the team pretty much doing the same thing the Dodgers was doing, and we liked the championships back then, and we weren't calling for a salary cap. So I would never even call for a salary cap. I just think whatever the market is, and if a team wants to pay it, hats off to them. Now, the Yankees seemingly weren't in on Tucker at all. I didn't think we would, but it's just going to be interesting now, of course, if he's getting that, then Cody Bellinger, with his numbers there, and you can maybe make a case that Cody Bellinger had a better 2025 than Kyle Tucker. So now the Yankees are going to have to now up their offer to Cody Bellinger. So that remains to be seen. But of course, now with Tucker out, and then Bichette will get to it in a second there, Bellinger is still the last piece to fall in the free agency market. And immediately after the Tucker signing, where the Mets might have had a little egg on their face because they were, supposedly they were going to sign Tucker, but nevertheless, the Mets reacted and pulled off a good move and kind of a surprising move, locking down Bo Bichette, who obviously was partially not only linked with maybe re-signing with Toronto as well as the Phillies, but maybe the Yankees possibly were kicking tires on him. But it seemingly they were not really too happy with getting in his defensive situation again. Not the greatest defensive shortstop, of course. You already have Volpe there. And I know some fans want to ship Volpe out there. I mean, offensively, could you say Bichette would have been an upgraded shortstop for the Yankees? Offensively wise, yeah, but again, they really didn't view him as, didn't like it as a shortstop. And where else are you going to put the guy? I mean, you have Jazz for another season on the contract at second base, and then of course you have McMahon slotted probably to get the majority of time at third. And I know a little tuning going on with Rosario there, but it really seemed like there was a place for Bichette, and so you can make the argument maybe first base, but again, you kind of have Ben Rice there. I know Ben Rice is probably going to be a little fluid in terms of between first base and some catching as well, but really wasn't any room for Bo Bichette. Now, I would have liked to have him just because he has something the Yankees don't really have too many of. That's a 300 hitter. I mean, the guy routinely, he's just a hit machine. Just gets a lot of hits. I mean, multiple seasons of about 200 hits, multiple times there. I know he was a little hurt last season. Again, he missed a good chunk of the postseason. Did come back for the World Series. But again, I just didn't know where exactly the Yankees were going to put the guy. Mainly because, again, you have Volpe there at shortstop. He's under contract. He's making relative peanuts. I don't think the Yankees were going to look to spend what was ultimately going to probably take to get him. And, of course, with the Mets, and Mets giving him a 3-year, $126 million deal. But again, this is one of these deals where you have to call about the annual average value type of deal there. So he'll be making $42 million per year. Now he can opt out after year 1 or year 2, or maybe just stays into all 3 years of the Mets. So he's not guaranteed all 3 years. But again, he's going to be 28 years old when the season starts. So same thing as Kyle Tucker, still relatively young. So if he wants to have a good season and then opt out after the season to either do the same type of deal, or maybe get like a 6-year contract there and then have to worry about that for the rest of his playing career, he may do so. So again, this is going to be the thing of the future now with these players who are late 20s, very early 30s. I think they're going to want these opt-outs because because teams want them to, because they don't want to be hanging on to somebody for 10 years like a Bryce Harper contract or a Manny Machado contract. I just think it's going to be a lot of front-loading money. And in a case like this, I mean, is Bichette a $42 million a year player? No, if George is only making 40. But if you only have to pay that 1 year, and again, maybe has a great season for you if you're the Mets, fine, you'll take it. And obviously, if he's having a great year, good chance you're in the playoff. Maybe do something, make your noise. Again, but if he wants to opt out his deal, fine. You just move on to Plan B, whatever that is after that. But if he has a good year for you, you almost don't mind, and you don't really have to carry the guy around for another 7 or 8 seasons there. So good response for the Mets. Again, it was kind of unexpected and seemingly he's going to be slotted in at third base. It's a position he never played before. Same thing happened to him in the World Series. Bichette had to play second base for the first time in his career. So defensively, I mean, Mets might lose a little bit there. Again, if he doesn't have a great range at shortstop, he might struggle a little bit at third base as well there. Again, you put him in a position he never really played before there, so I'm sure he could handle it. But again, Mets take a little bit of risk there, and it just seemed it's quite a different player than Kyle Tucker. You figure if the Mets struck out on Tucker, maybe they would have went after Cody Bellinger. Now, supposedly they were in on Bellinger, but it just seemed like if they missed out on Tucker, then the immediate response would have been to go after Cody Bellinger. So that kind of tells you 2 things there. It tells you either the Mets weren't really in on Bellinger, and then maybe that's his rumors. So maybe they just wanted to do Tucker and Bichette. That was their plan all the way, which might make sense. Or maybe, again, it's just sort of like they just wanted to get Bichette just because they feel like they had to make a move, but they can also maybe want to get Bellinger just to kind of stick it to the Yankees a little bit. So both could be true there, but it's just kind of weird. You figure if they struck out on Tucker, the immediate move would go right after Bellinger, but instead of going after Bellinger right away, it seemed like they went after Bichette. So a little inconsistent, just tough to figure out, but nevertheless, the Mets, again, definitely offensively, that's really adding to the team as they kind of revamp that infield because, again, Alonso now with Baltimore. They got Polanco, at least for now, at first base. Simeon at second. Shortstop is still Lindor in his prime, still playing an all-star caliber for the Mets. And now you got Bichette. So Mets did a good move by them. Kudos for them. And again, it's just it's a 3-year deal. But if Bichette wants to opt out early and then go elsewhere, the Mets are not hanging on to the guy. So good move by them. Even though, is he worth $42 million a year? Of course not. But again, but also the Mets don't have to worry about hanging the guy on for 10 years. And as mentioned at the top, it does help the Yankees, similar to Bregman leaving Boston and going to the Cubs, just to get Bichette out of the AL East. And again, the Yankees really over the past year, 2 years, have been struggling against Toronto, and Bichette a part of that problem. So, now Toronto's made some improvements in some other areas, so it's not like Toronto's also going to be a cakewalk. Again, they might have a little bit of a World Series hangover there, even though they lost World Series and had a longer season, so maybe they get that. But again, they've also made some improvements. They've also signed Dylan Cease as well, so to improve their starting rotation. So it doesn't make Toronto a cakewalk all of a sudden, but similar to Bregman. Bregman's a good player. You just want him out of your division. Same thing with Bichette. You want him out of your division. He's going to play with Queens. You have to see him a couple times a year. Whoop-de-doo. But it's better than having him beat you up when he was with the Blue Jays. If he does it with the Mets a little bit, it's just 3 games, and after a week later, no one cares anymore. Which now leads us to Cody Bellinger, and reports are the Yankees are kind of losing their patience with him, seemingly dragging this thing out. Again, it's been dragging for weeks, which you got to understand a little bit. You probably want to see how the Bregman deal is going to break down, probably want to see how the Tucker deal is going to break down, see how the Bichette deal will break down, and then make adjustments from there. So again, from that standpoint, you can understand why him and Boris haven't been quick to sign. But again, seemingly the Yankees are at a point where they say, look, it's going to be 5 years, about $160 million, take it or leave it. It seems like they're willing to almost walk away very soon. But also at the same time, we're also hearing that, within days, Cody Bellinger is going to make his decision. And again, it could come right after, as I'm saying this right now. I mean, it's definitely a fluid situation there. So not sure if the Yankees are bluffing or not. But again, they might get to a point, whether it's a week from now, if he hasn't made a decision, February is about to hit, they just might pull the offer off the table and say, look, if you don't want to be here, you don't want to be here there. So kind of understand a little bit. And I mean, if he wants to be a Yankee, again, they're making him, same thing with Soto. I mean, could he get $1 more somewhere else? Maybe. But I think it's a fair market value deal for him, that if he wants to be a Yankee, he can make himself a Yankee there. But again, they're holding off. And again, it could be some of these these little details where it's a signing bonus, which he opt out, and all other things like that, deferred money maybe, something like that there. Maybe they'll try to put this together. Again, reports are the Yankees are starting to lose their patience a little bit. Now, again, we had this story which we mentioned last week here. This was according to The Athletic, that, again, the Yankees were willing to offer an opt-out either after year 2 or year 3 in a deal. Now, maybe it's year 2 and 3, or maybe it's only one of those years. But also, and again, Ruben also to include a signing bonus as well. But again, the deal total just seems to be, whichever way it works out, is to be about 5 years, $160 million. And it's just now up to Bellinger whether he wants to pull the trigger on that or not. I don't think he's going to get Kyle Tucker type of money. Again, I'm surprised. Even Tucker's probably shocked he got Kyle Tucker money there. And again, I like Bellinger, as good as Bellinger was, and he had a good season with the Yankees. I do not think he's worth that type of money. I don't even think he's worth the Bichette money of $40 million per year. I think, if the Yankees offer seems to be around $32, $33 million per year, even that's slightly overpaid a little bit, but I think I'm okay with it. But if he thinks he's going to get 40 more and he's kind of going to hold the Yankees to that, I know fans are like, well, I don't care, it's my money, just buy the guy. But at a certain point, too, it just gets a little ridiculous there. And again, he's not that good of he's really good player, same like Tucker there, but he's not like generational. He's not a Judgian, Ohtani, Soto type of player to sort of command that type of money. But this is the way the market works. Maybe he gets that from somebody, so we'll see how it works out. Again, that seems like the Mets could be in the mix. The Yankees, of course, definitely in the mix there. And it could be a team like Toronto. Now, Toronto supposedly also offered Tucker a 10-year deal, but at $35 million per year. So overall, the total value of the contract would be worth more than the Dodgers at $350 million. But again, that's over the course of 10 years. The Dodgers offering this within 4 years there, so they're front loading the money there. The Toronto order was a straight old school $35 million per year for 10 years, sort of almost. Like, again, an old school type of contract, like a Manny Machado type of a contract like that, which, again, I don't think you can see that in baseball. I think we can see in baseball now is this whole annual average value type of deal, and it's probably what Bellinger is going to see, and it's probably what he's going to try to get from the Yankees, and we'll just see how it all works out. But as I said before, look, if as much as I'd rather have Bellinger, but I'm also okay if they move on without him there, and just just have a little bit of faith in Dominguez. Hopefully he takes the next step there. I'm only 22 years old. I mean, the guy was your big top prospect for a couple of years, and I know maybe last year was a little bit disappointing, but I'm also just rolling the dice with him out there that he has a better season, improves a little bit. You're probably going to hold your breath defensively still, and you probably have to yank him out after the 7th inning for some replacement defense. That's why he got Rosario there. But again, if they want to move forward with Dominguez there, I'm still okay with it. So, this offseason Cashman's not been too excitable. It's been a lot of re-signings because you got Tim Hill, Ryan Yarbrough, Ahmed Rosario, and while the Dodgers pretty much bringing guys like Edward Diaz and Kyle Tucker there, so I understand the Yankee fans not exactly thrilled to see the Cashman's offseason so far. You would say the trade probably a week ago, getting Ryan Weathers, from the Marlins, that was probably at least pretty decent deal there. So I have to tip the hat to that one. Again, other than that, it hasn't been an excitable offseason for the Yankees, and they kind of continue that with a lot of pickup guys a little past their prime, like Paul DeYoung, who I mentioned before. You got Zach Short, going to be a utility infield there. So now we have another diamond in the rough here. And this one is Seth Brown, signed to a minor league deal. Now, this is according to Just Baseball. Again, he was cut by the Athletics last year, 33 years old. And it's like, why? Here's a guy who if you get cut from the Athletics, how it's bad enough to be an athletic, but you're not even good enough for them. How bad you have to be there. And then of all the players you could sign, all the guys that might be in the minor league system, you want to come there, you got to sign this guy there. So kind of a head scratch move by Cashman. I'm sure there's reasons why they went after this guy. I don't think it's putting a scare into Bellinger. He is an outfielder. He also plays some first base. Technically, Bellinger could do the same thing there. So, I don't know if this is like, try to scare Bellinger's shoes. Well, we'll just replace you with Seth Brown. So I don't think it's that, but maybe something Cashman saw on the guy, but nevertheless, I'll give you the stats on him. Career batting average of 226. So yet another guy well under 250 that the Yankees really need like a hole in the head. I mentioned before he's a lefty bat. So again, he's lefty bat. He can play outfield as well as first base. His best seasons were back in 2021 and 2025. 2021, he had 20 home runs, and in 2022, he had 25 home runs. So again, his best 2 years were almost like 4 years ago. He is 33 years old, so he's only going to be 35. So it's just like, doesn't seem like the type of guy you want to give a shot on. So I'm not sure exactly what Cashman saw in him. And again, last season I mentioned with the Athletics, only played 38 games, hit a whopping 185, so not even hitting 200, under 200, with 1 home run and 3 RBIs before eventually being released by the Athletics. Again, maybe there's a guy to throw in the mix. It's a minor league deal, and this guy might be just you probably won't hear by after 2 weeks of spring training, maybe you don't hear from the guy anymore. But sometimes you have those guys that just come in like Matt Carpenter. I'll say at least Matt Carpenter had a bit of a resume when he kind of resurrected himself with the Yankees a little bit and had a couple of good runs before, unfortunately, having that heel injury, which took him out of the 2022 season there. So maybe they find out this like something kicks into this guy. I don't know exactly what Cashman saw in them, but nevertheless, Seth Brown, the newest New York Yankee. And switching gears a little bit, as mentioned before, we have a little Hall of Fame news and 2 new Hall of Famers. 2 players that were pretty dominant towards the late 90s and throughout the 2000s. And, I think you make a good case for this. So I don't think these were too gross. And 2 of them at least donned the Yankee uniform at one point. And that's, of course, Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones. Now, remember a couple of weeks ago, the Veterans Committee voted in Jeff Kent. Again, that's the way where if you can't get in through the baseball writers, the Veterans Committee, could take guys like a Jeff Kent or, of course, they threw Don Manning's name out there that you get in afterwards there. So I didn't really love the Kent one. I kind of understand a little bit there, but, I didn't feel it was a strong pick. These 2, I'm pretty much okay with for the most part. I'll say more I'm okay with the Carlos Beltran one versus the Andrew Jones. Now, I think Andrew Jones is not really in there for his hitting. Of course, during his tenure there, considered one of the best center fielders of the time there, so you kind of understand that. 10 Gold Gloves, so that kind of speaks for itself there. So I can at least understand the Andrew Jones one. Offensively, obviously he has less than 2,000 hits, less than 500 home runs. So I don't think he's getting in because of his offense. I think the offense helps, and you can say it was both offensively and defensively one of the premier shortstops for center fielders for a significant amount of time as he was playing there. So at least I get understanding Andrew Jones. I can definitely understand the Carlos Beltran one. I didn't think he would be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but again, you look what the body of work he did there. Playing a long career, switch hitter with power. Again, does he have the 3,000 hits? No, but a little shade under it. Does he have the 500 home runs? No, but he's in the 400s there. And again, I think at the time you looked at him as one of the best players while he was in the game. Same with Andrew Jones at his position. Same thing with Carlos Beltran, who was also a center fielder for a majority of his career. Again, and pretty good center fielder at that. Obviously Jones a little bit better there with the 10 Gold Gloves, but again, Carlos Beltran, nothing to sniff at as well. And again, one of the dominant premier hitters of the game. Again, doing it as a switch hitter, and of course joins a rare class of the likes of like an Eddie Murray, Mickey Mantle, type of players of that ilk. And of course now you could add Carlos Beltran to the list. So I think they're both fair. Beltran got about 84% of the vote. Now, again, you have to get over the 75% threshold to make the Hall of Fame. And that's why, writers have all these different quirks. Sometimes they say, well, this guy's a Hall of Famer, but I'm not going to put him on the first ballot. I feel he's a second or third year Hall of Famer there. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, either someone's a Hall of Famer or they're not. And I say maybe look at the game a little differently. Over a longer period of time, you understand a player's value versus maybe when they first were eligible. So I can understand the argument as well there. But again, the purpose of the guy to wait is to say, all right, I'm not going to put him in. I'll put him in, but not his first year because I don't think he's a first ballot. It's a little silly. I mean, either someone's a Hall of Famer or they're not. But getting back to Carlos Beltran, of the two, I think Carlos Beltran's a little bit more deserving. Then he got 84%. Andrew Jones ended up a little bit at 78, which I'm a little surprised with. Now, the Andrew Jones one is interesting. I know he's got the Gold Gloves, and you can say, well, wasn't he the best, one of the best center fielders during his time he was playing? Yeah, you can make the case there. So I don't think it's atrocious. I mean, we've seen some bad ones in there. I don't think this is totally atrocious. Like, something like a Joe Mauer situation. I just don't think he was fitting. But nevertheless, but at least Andrew Jones, when you understand it, because again, defensively, he was one of the best center fielders at that time. And he had a couple of big seasons. Just looking at some of his numbers, he had 151 home run season. Now, people might have thought maybe it was on the source or something. Again, there's never been any allegations at him, but it was just kind of weird. Like, he was always like a 30-ish home run guy, and then out of nowhere, he hits 51. I mean, it makes you scratch your head a little bit. But nevertheless, consistently, though, did show power. I mean, I'm seeing seasons of 31 home runs, 26, 36, 34, 35, 36, 29, then 51, a little head scratching, but then 41 after that, okay, then 26, and then injuries started coming in a little bit, obviously then, toward the later end of his career, but still 17 home runs, 19 home runs, had 13 in the season he played with the Yankees, and then again, had 2 seasons with the Yankees, and then hit 13 and 14. So, at least consistently showing power, not like a 10 home run guy and then hitting 51 home runs. Well, that's a little bit weird there. But as mentioned before, the career batting average, 254, that's not really impressive. 434 home runs, and again, under 2,000 hits with 1933 there. So, again, probably maybe 5 to 10 years ago, he would not be viewed as a Hall of Famer, but I just think maybe looking at these players now with different numbers and the fact that he kind of played during the steroid era, he did come up in 96 and played during that whole era, and there's never really been any allegations towards him, not even rumors there, so, you see his, 434 home runs by carry more weight versus someone like McGwire, who had more home runs, but of course, we know the situation with McGwire and Soto and the like and obviously they're probably not going to be a Hall of Fame, including someone like, A-Rod as well. And speaking of A-Rod getting about 40% of the vote, as well as former Yankee, as well Andy Pettitte. Now, I don't think either of those two are probably going to get in. I think if A-Rod does get in, it might be down the road and probably through the Veterans Committee, probably will vote him in. Now, I've seen some cases very recently for Andy Pettitte. He's just not a Hall of Famer. I've made that case many times. Back when I was champion Mike Mussina many seasons ago, I was just trying to compare that to the Pettitte situation. And look, I would like to see Pettitte in, of course, but we just got, we can't be homers there. We got to just view this annually. You can't say he was Hall of Fame great. He was just a really good pitcher for a long time. And of course, on another level in the postseason. But the problem is the postseason, not everyone makes it. You can't just judge on the postseason alone there. But where he was phenomenal in the postseason, of course, there. But it's mostly based on the regular season, and he's just not that type of pitcher in terms of racking up the low subpar ERAs and the Cy Young awards and all that stuff there. I mean, you see his career ERA and stuff like that is quite high, and he had a lot of seasons where he just wasn't good. He was like a 500 pitcher, just a little stinky there. Now he came back with the Yankees and kind of changed his repertoire a little bit there, but he was never saw Andy Pettitte as a great pitcher. You never saw Andy Pettitte as a Roger Clemens, for example, or a Greg Maddux or a Tom Glavine, like a top pitcher in the game there. Pettitte was just a very good pitcher who came up clutch in the postseason there. So for Pettitte, unfortunately, I don't see the Hall of Fame in his future. Maybe A-Rod, it'll probably be through the Veterans Committee, where I think maybe they'll say, all right, you know what, we know he did some bad stuff, probably. Same thing with Barry Bonds, but also, these are 2 Hall of Fame players, and it's a sin to leave them out there. So they're probably out, but in the meantime, congratulations, both Carlos Beltran and Andrew Jones. I can see it happens, deserving. Jones one, but the Beltran, definitely Beltran. So that's the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. So congratulations to those 2 new Hall of Famers, Carlos Beltran, who probably go in donning a Met hat, and of course Andrew Jones definitely with the Braves hat. Now again, they both spent a little bit of time with the Yankees, but not enough there. I meant that Beltran's probably a Met, Andrew Jones definitely a Brave. And of course now we're just going to wait for the shoe to drop with Cody Bellinger, whether it's going to be the Yankees or someone else. But wherever he does end up, make sure you subscribe to the audio podcast version of the show, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Subscribe on YouTube, and we'll catch you next time.